browser is both will work. If I don't have inline CSS anywhere anymore, only we are working on internal and external. Which is coming first means that is very simple trick. What a trick is, the last line is first execution. The last line is first execution. Okay, so external will load first when I'm going to be having internal then external. If I'm going to be having external then internal, internal is the first preference to the browser. Okay, so I try to explore multiple kind of selectors. There are a lot of selectors which are going to be available, but okay, I'll go with the tag selector. The one is the tag selector. The first one is the tag selector. The second one is the class selector. And third one is the ID selector. And fourth one is group selector. And one more thing is a parent selector. And one thing is adjacent one sibling selector. And one more thing is adjacent all sibling selector. And one is even selector. One is odd selector. And one is nth child selector. And child selector. And one is a pseudo selector. Pseudo selector we will be having over selector. And one is a universal selector. See, like this, there are multiple kind of selectors we are going to be having. I will explain all the selectors one by one. But all these types of selectors, the major important selectors in the real time is tag selector, class selector, and ID selector. Mostly people will use class selector. This is the most important one. Most important. For CSS, mostly people write a class selector. Okay, what about class? What about ID? We already know about what is the class, what about ID? Class and ID both are attributes. Class
ID is unique.
ID is unique, class is multiple. Okay, you can specify a number of class names. Class name is something like a nickname, right? Class name is something like a nickname. You can able to give a number of nicknames for a tag. But ID is not like that. ID is unique for each and every element. ID is unique. ID is separate. Okay, let me try to work out about all the selectors. The first one is about tag selector. Okay, what about tag selector? Selecting by the tag name. Selecting by the tag name. Now tell me how to write this one. Tag name and curly braces open, curly braces close. For example, h1 img form, the name of the tag. So you have to give the name of the form. That's it. Or table or tr or tr. See, something like select an element or selecting by tag name. The first kind of selector is what? Tag selector. How to write tag selector is tag name, open curly braces and closing curly braces. Inside open curly braces and closing curly braces, you can write a property and value. Property value, semicolon. Property and value, semicolon. Property and value, semicolon. But property and value separated with the colon symbol. Property value pair separated with the semicolon. Remember syntax. So this is already we know. So we are already writing in a part of this one. So this is the tag selector. Clearly saying that this is the tag selector. Any confusion with this? This is tag selector. Why? Because of we are selecting element by tag name. We are selecting element by tag name. That is the reason it is called a tag selector. Okay. Avinash. Everybody can able to see my screen now. I think
yes,
Avinash available in the waiting room. Okay. So Avinash, I allowed you. Okay. Now remember this point. Now come to the point, the second one. What is the second one now? Class selector. It's the most important thing. It's the most important thing. Class selector. Okay, so here also what I want to do is I will write down some heading kind of. Okay. This one, how class selector will work? Select by class name. Precedence with dot symbol. Dot. With dot. Okay, how this will be? Dot class name. Very important. Dot class name. Dot class name. For example, there is a class called first. There is a name of the class called first. First. There is a class called second. Dot second. There is a class called third. Dot third. There is a class called apple. There is a class called, I am giving my own class name is called apple. Okay, you can give the apple class. My class name called Hyderabad. Yes, you can give the class name as Hyderabad. Dot Hyderabad, dot second, dot third, dot apple. All these things are basically class names. Got my point? So the name of the class is your wish, right? For your tag, you can give any name. That name should be actually multiple class names you can able to provide for your tag. Okay, how to define this? For example, I have h1 tag. Okay, hello web. This is my h1 tags. For this h1, how to write class? Class is equal to Hyderabad. And one more class I want for this. Class name is Apple. And one more class I want to write. Class called Android. See, how many classes I defined for this h1 now? Can you tell me how many classes I defined now?
5.
How many classes? No, not about this one. Not about this one. These are the different kind of example. This is the example I'm giving. So example, syntax. In this example, for one tag, there is one tag called h1. For this h1, how many classes I written? How many nicknames I given? How many nicknames I given?
3.
3.
Hide, Apple, Android.
One is hide. Hide is nothing but Hyderabad. Okay. Hyderabad. And one more thing is Apple. And one more thing is Android. I given 3 classes. You would observe one thing. Class and another class. One class or another class. Not actually typed. But 2 class names separated with the space. 2 class names. Hyderabad is one class, Apple is one class, separated with the space. Apple is one class, Android is one class, separated by a space. And some rules and regulations for the class names, sir. Rules for class name. What are the rules for the class? Whenever you are writing your class name is your wish. Class name is your wish, but we need to follow some rules and regulations for the class name. What is the first rule? Class name not start with a number. Class name not start with a number. Don't start your class name with a number. That is the first rule. Class and another class separated with a space. This is the second rule. And one more point. Class name should not contain any special character. Any special character. What are the different kind of special characters, you know?
Star.
These kind of special characters will not allow, sir. These kind of special characters will not allow. Class name will not allow any kind of special characters like this. Got my point? But one thing, class name will allow only one special character. Only one special character called underscore. Underscore, anywhere you go, underscore have some special preference. only underscore special character will allow for the class name. No other special characters will not allow by the class name. Got my point? So some rules and regulations for the class name. Okay, class name is your wish. You can define your own name for the class name. But the first point is very important. Class name not start with a number. Second point is important. Class name and another class name separated with a space. Apple is one class, Android is one class. If I specify something like this, Apple Android is one class name now. See, this time Apple Android is one class name. If I give a space like Apple space Android, Apple is one class, Android is one class. Apple is one name, Android is one name. And one more thing, class name, class not start or not contain class name. So can I specify like class name like class name? Don't give space. Class name and another class name. Here also let me give class name. Okay, now third point, class name should not contain any special character. And one more point, class name will allow only one special character. Only one special character. What is that? Underscore. Underscore is allowed. Without underscore, any special character will not allow for class. Okay, so can I go with the class selector here? Can I go with the class selector? Class underscore selector. Class selector dot html. Okay, so let's take a h1. So this is a simple element. For this particular simple element, I am trying to giving a multiple classes. Okay, class name. So I told you the first point. What is the first point? What is the first point? Class name do not start with a number. Do not. Okay. Class name do not start with a number. It means what? Sir, tell me. One apple. One apple. Okay. We'll try to see this. Okay. What is the name of the class? One apple, right? Dot one apple. Is it allowed? Automatically red color came. Automatically red color came. So your editor is actually clearly saying that this is a wrong syntax. Sir, everybody got to understand what I'm trying to do. Doing is class name will not start with a number. I am trying to starting my class name by the number. What is the number I'm starting with? What is the number I'm starting with here? Tell me, sir.
1.
No, this time I'm giving 6.
6.
Yeah, 6 now.
6 apple. 6 apple is not allowing. So this syntax will not work out. Okay, this is not a right class name. That's fine. So just make it switch off. So this will not allow. Okay, let me try to give this one. Hash. Hash is the special character or not? Hash.
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay, so this will not allow. Special character also not allow. Only one special character allow. I told you that will be underscore. You can work with underscore. You can work with underscore. Underscore apple is allowed. Underscore apple is allowed. Okay, but I'm trying to giving with the hash symbol here. Hash apple dot hash apple. Okay, it's got recognized or not? Okay, let me try to give the color. color red. Color red. For hash apple, I am trying to giving the color red. Which will work, execute or not. Right? No, red is not coming. Why? Red is not coming. Why?
Because
It is-
hash is not acceptable. Hash special character is not
Hash
Two
is
times
the,
you written.
no. Hash is the special character. Don't give the hash. Hash is the special character. Underscore is okay, but hash will not work out. So remove hash. Okay, this code also not work. Okay, underscore apple. Now this time I am giving underscore apple. Dot underscore apple. Color red. Dot underscore apple. Color red. I am trying to providing underscore. Underscore is a special character which will work out. Underscore is the only special character which will allow, but any other special character will not allow for the class name. At the same time, class name should not start with the number. Maybe class name, you have a number for the endpoint. For example, this class name, I want to go for apple 1. Apple 1 is okay. Apple 1. Dot apple 1. See, dot is compulsory. Okay, for apple 1, color blue. So what is the name of the class now? So this is working, no issues. Dot apple will work. But now the class name is what? Underscore apple is one class name. Apple 1 is another class name. Two class names. The first class name is underscore apple. Second class name is apple 1. Underscore apple I am giving red. Dot apple 1 I am giving what? Blue. What is the output? Guess. Blue is the output. Why blue? Why blue? Anybody? Why blue? Anybody? Sir, just try to observe why blue color is coming here. Why blue color is coming means last line is first execution. We have class, we have class. Two classes I have for the H1, right? How many classes are available for H1 now? Two classes. Okay, for two classes, for both classes, I am trying to writing the color. So in the first class, underscore apple, I am giving red color. In the apple 1, dot apple 1, I am giving blue color. Last line is first execution. Okay, let me do one thing. So I just want to make a swap. Go for apple top, apple 1 top, underscore apple down. Now last line is first execution. Last line is what? Last class is what? Last class is apple, underscore apple, underscore apple. What color we have? Red color. Red color into multiple. See, whenever we have multiple classes, don't confuse. Whenever we have multiple classes, don't confuse. In the code, in the style sheet, last class is the first execution. In the style sheet, this is style sheet. Style open, style close means style sheets are. In the style sheet, last class is the first execution. That is what actually try to observe and understand. Is it clear? Everybody, it is clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this is about
Yes,
this is about a class selector. Okay, unfortunately, I am trying to providing the class selector and tag selector. So these are the class selectors. Okay, about the class selector. I'm trying to giving the tag selector also. What is the tag name? What is the tag name?
H1.
H1, obviously H1, but I don't want a green color. For H1, I'm giving green color. Now tell me what is the output you guess. We have two classes, apple 1,
Green.
underscore apple, and H1. By seeing the code, by seeing this particular section of the code, we have two classes and one tag name. Tag name I'm writing in the last line. We are writing blue first.
Green, sir.
Yeah. Obviously, output is red only. Output is red only. Why? Because of when we have tag selector and class selector is the first preference to the browser. Class selector is the first preference to the browser. Yes, sir. Let me write the points now. This is something like a selector preference. Okay, here I'm writing a note point. If I am having two class names per element, if I am having two class names per element, tell me, last class selection is first preference to the browser. Yes or no? This point is correct or not?
Yeah.
If I'm having two class names per element, last class selection is the first preference to the browser. Okay. If I am having okay, tag selector and class selector for one element, for any element. Tell me the answer. If I am having tag selector and class selector for any element, which selector is first preference to the browser? I'm having tag and class.
Class selector.
Exactly. So class selector is the first preference to the browser. Even it is in the last line. Tag selector is in the last line, but tag selector will not work out. Class selector only first preference to the browser. First preference to the browser. So now I will ask one question, one important question. If I am having tag selector, class selector, and inline CSS for an element. Now tell me something. Which will be the first preference to the browser?
Inline.
Obviously. How you say that?
Sir, it is directly established in tag.
Yes.
Inside tag.
It is directly establishing from the tag. It is not from internal. It is not from external. See, selector, where we are writing selectors, basically selectors we are writing in internal or external. Correct? Selectors we are writing in internal or external. But when we have inline is always first preference to the browser. Okay, no other selectors it will not listen. No any other selectors it will not listen. Inline, if style attribute we have, automatically that is the first preference to the browser. If style attribute is not there, if inline is not there, then only it will look into the selectors. In selectors, the first preference when we have tag and class is the first preference. Got my point? Got my point? Here it is important. Style preferences is different. Selector preferences is different. Today class is very, very important class. Preferences of types of CSS and preferences of selectors. Now tell me, come to the ID, sir. Slowly. ID selector. What about ID selector? Selecting by ID name. Sir, no. Selecting by ID name. Preference with hash. Hash symbol. For example, I have an H1 and I have some text inside. Now, how to select this one? Let me write ID for this. ID space ID. Okay, ID is Apple. ID is Apple. Now you tell me how to select this one. Go to style.css. Hash Apple. That's it. Okay, if you have a class called Apple, class name also Apple. Okay, so how to select by the class? Dot. Here color red. Here color blue. What is the output of the browser? Here we have blue and red. What is the output of the browser? See, we know about a comparison between the tag and the class already. If you have tag and class is the first preference. Now I am working with comparison of class and ID. Sir, you have your name, sir. You have your nickname, and you have your Aadhaar card. What is the first preference for bank system or online system?
Blue.
Your recognition, first preference is your Aadhaar number, not your name or not your nickname. There are so many nicknames for a person, Bujji, something like this. But nicknames should not work out in real world, which is the first priority for the world, for your recognition. Your recognition inside the classroom. See, for example, there is a name called Sony. Sony, number of persons will be available in the classroom. But your identity code number is unique in the classroom. Your identity code number is something like your ID. Sony, a number of persons, already 10 members Sony available. Sony. If sir calls Sony, raise your hand. All Sonys will raise your hand. All Sonys will raise hand. But when I call by the ID, automatically that particular person will raise the hand. It means what? ID is always first preference here also. Got my point? Even the last line we have the class. In 175 line I am writing ID. In 176 I am writing class. But what is the output of the browser? Tell me some. What is the output of the browser? By this 3 lines of code, you can tell me what is the output of the browser? Blue, obviously blue. Obviously blue. Why? Because ID is the first preference. Maybe it is in the previous line. I don't care about it. See, here the priority is not line by line. Here the priority according to the symbol, according to the identity. Here priority goes with identity. But when we are following with the class names, apple.apple1.apple2, then last line is the first execution. Why? Because both priority, both are classes only. Both are classes only. Last line is the first execution. Got my point? Okay, let me take one simple example, then you can understand how this thing is going to be happening. Okay, save it as ID selector. ID selector.html. Click a H1, give the web development, and style open, style close. And here I am writing class and ID. Class is Apple, and ID also Apple. And for class, I am writing a style sheet, and ID also I am writing style sheet. Hash Apple APPLE, giving a color blue. And we have a class also. Dot Apple, I am giving a color green. Tell me what is the output of the browser. Imagine we have class called Apple, we have ID called Apple, or we have ID called app, or we have ID called app. Now Apple will call or app will call. Blue will come. Damn sure blue will come. Why? Because of ID is the first preference to the browser if you have class and ID. Like, got my point? Okay, so here I'm giving H1 color red. Okay, in this case, I don't have ID. Okay, I'm not using ID selector. Now tell me what is the preference? What is the output of the browser? I don't have ID. I don't have ID selection. I have only two selection. One is the class selection, one is the tag selection. In this case, what is the first priority, sir? Tag and class or class and tag? What is the first priority to the browser? Anybody? Respond with me, sir. Here I don't have ID. I have class name. I have tag name. What is the first preference to the browser?
The visit class.
Exactly. See, in the last program, what we are discussing about? In the last program, what we are discussing about? If you have class, automatically class will come to the browser. If you have tag and class, class will come to the browser. If you have tag, ID and class, ID is coming to the browser first. ID is the first priority. Got my point, everyone? So in this case, what is the output of the browser is very simple. Class, green will come. Why? Because class and tag we have. Okay, I am actually enabled ID selector also. When I am enabled ID selector also, now tell me what is the output of the browser.
Blue.
I enabled ID also. Yeah, ID. If ID is available, ID will come to the browser first. If ID is not available, then green will come. Refresh. Green will come. Why? Because the class is available now. Class is the highest priority now. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So let me write a point here. So if I am having very simple, this one. If I am having tag selector, class selector, we take this point. Okay. If I am having tag selector or if I am having tag selector, class selector, tag selector, comma, ID selector. If I am having tag selector, ID selector, and class selector for any element, what is the first preference here? ID selector only the first preference. ID selector only the first preference to the browser. Okay. Now the last point. If I am having tag selector, comma, ID selector, class selector, and inline CSS. And inline CSS.
Inline.
Yeah, inline is always first preference to the browser. Here answer is inline. Here answer is inline. It is clear, very clear. So this is according to the selection point. Don't confuse. We are trying to working with the types of CSS. In types of CSS, inline is the first preference. If inline is not available, it will go for internal and external. But internal, external, the last line is the first execution to the browser. That is okay, fine. I am agree with that. But when we are trying to working with the selectors, the concept is completely reverse. When we are talking about the selectors, the concept is completely different. In inline or internal, anywhere ID is found, automatically ID will go to the browser. The concept is reverse. When I come to the selector's point of view, anywhere ID is founding, internal or external, ID will go browser. If ID is not available, in internal or external, anywhere class selector is found, automatically class selector will go to the browser. Otherwise, tag selector. Otherwise, nothing, black and white. If inline is there, inline will go. If inline is not there, now finally tell me that what is the preference of the browser is first inline. If inline is not there, ID. ID is not there, class. Class is not there, tag. Even tag also not there, browser default style. What is the browser default style? Black and white. Yes or no? Something. If I am talking about colors, actually, if I am talking about colors, it will go for black and white. Okay, so try to work on style preferences and all, and I will upload the recorded session and notes. Okay, so about tomorrow class, we will inform about it. Before 3 o'clock, I will inform if class is available or not. I don't know. Tomorrow is the holiday, I think so. I will upload the recorded session. Yes, చెప్పండి.
రేపు లేదండి.
There is no class for tomorrow, sir. You can take holiday and do practice well all the programs whatever we discussed so far. I will upload the recorded sessions and notes also within 15 minutes today itself. Tomorrow do practice.